start, why did you go to Antarctica?
I went to Antarctica because I wanted to learn about the science that was happening down there. I wanted to learn about what Kiwis were doing down there. I think when you grow up in New Zealand, you have this relationship with Antarctica from when you're a little kid. You learn about it in school, and for me, it was always a big passion of mine. I grew up reading about, Robert Scott and Shackleton and all that kind of stuff, and just I found the sort of Antarctic frontiersman idea really fascinating. But yeah, it was primarily the science that I wanted to learn about at this stage. Obviously, it's a really pivotal time environmentally right now, and I think more and more people are starting to think about what's going on in terms of our climate, in terms of what's changing and what will change. And I think going to Antarctica is a really great way to be able to see long and short term, and just talk to some of the most interesting people and most genius people in terms of science and climate and all that sort of stuff.
I will come back to the science itself, but
cool.
Take yourself back. What was it like when you first stepped off that plane into that?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm going to get emotional talking about this. I remember actually stepping off that plane, and it was just the most incredible weather. It was blue sky and this dazzling sun, and I think it was like midnight when we got up, 2 in the morning or something, and obviously it's just full sun, and I felt like we were in space. It's such an alien environment, and it's so dazzling straight away, and we were just so excited about what our week was going to hold, and nervous. There was a real sense of anticipation around it, but yeah, nothing will ever quite compare to that first moment. We talked about how that would feel, and it's incredible.
Let's go to the science then. Who did you meet, or you don't have to name if you can't remember their names, but what sort of science did you experience or witness while you were in Antarctica?
Oh my gosh, I got to see so much incredible science taking place at Scott Base and around Scott Base. Everything from a group that had been with the Adele penguins at Cape Bird for something like 9 weeks, watching them come into shore and see what was happening with their feeding and their mating and all that sort of stuff, to whale scientists, tracking whales and seeing their paths and seeing what was going on with them, to stuff like getting to do a weather reading with this equipment that Sir Edmund Hillary had put in place, 60 years ago, and getting to learn about some of the kind of, you hear these big words growing up, stuff about the ozone hole or the ozone layer, and getting to see that because of the work that we've all done, that's actually closing up now over Antarctica. Stuff like that was really, really interesting to me, yeah.
Why do you think it's important that New Zealanders are aware of this science that we conduct in Antarctica?
I mean, I feel like New Zealanders are lucky because we are in touch with the environment and with stuff like climate change in ways that a lot of other countries culturally are not. Being so close to Antarctica and having an awareness of it as this incredibly powerful place, not just like spiritually, but also it's this massive source of ice and therefore potentially water, which can obviously, we're all talking about sea level rise all the time, and to look at somewhere like Antarctica where, you have the Western Peninsula, right, which is seeing some of the fastest warming out of anywhere in the world. There are obviously it's a big continent and there's a lot going on, and that change isn't happening everywhere. But and you know, it isn't like this is change that is going to happen tomorrow. But I think it's important to be acquainted with that. And even like going back to, you know, I found these penguin scientists so interesting. Them talking about the algae growing on the underside of the sea ice, and that feeding the krill, which feeds the penguins and many other species in Antarctica. And you know, the simple fact of there being less and less sea ice each year, that is such a tangible effect, you know, of something like this global warming that is happening. Yeah, it's it's definitely wide-reaching and wide-arching, a lot of the science stuff, and I feel like being there for the time that I was there, I did my best to even get a glimpse of the scope of it. But no, it was really. I think what Kiwis, I don't know. I think what Kiwis need to know about. I'm trying to think of like the best way of saying it.
That's all right.
Good thing we're not on the
good.
live camera. I think that going to Antarctica, you're able to see the potential for great change, positive or negative, based on, in large part, how we respond. You know, all of us, I think sometimes it's hard to see a tangible consequence to all of us changing our habits around how we consume and what we put out into the world, and going to Antarctica and seeing this really raw, powerful place and source of, you know, potential environmental change was really helpful to me, because I could see, you know, if this continent melted in its entirety, we would see a 60-meter sea level rise, and something like that is really shocking and is something that we need to pay attention to and to think about. So yeah. It's such a hard question to answer. I'm like, there's so much to it.
There is. This is a wee, I don't know, you already knew about this question, but it might be a wee bit cheeky, but what happens next in your Antarctic journey? Like, what can you undertake to ensure that the message continues to get out there?
I mean, for me, that is something that I've been thinking about a lot in terms of what I learnt down there, because it has stayed with me for sure. I mean, just on more short-term stuff, I'm working on a big piece of journalism about what happened for me down there, what I experienced. I'm also going to put together a book with the photos that Harry Ware took, the photographer that I took down there, and writing that I have done and thoughts that I've had both when I was there and since. But I also met a lot of really interesting people down there, and they have sort of put me in touch with some interesting groups who are looking at different ways to get people engaged with climate and with that change, and sort of going at it from a different perspective, because now we all have the facts. It's about getting people to really engage with it and framing it in a way which isn't like doomsday, because it's hard to know what to do with that information. You know, it's so can be so overwhelming emotionally, and just getting at it from a different perspective, you know, and I think Antarctica is a really good metaphor for that. Like, it doesn't feel doomy when you're down there. It feels, I felt an incredible amount of hope, and seeing that science that was taking place, and seeing the resilience of just the terrain and the environment, you know, I felt like there was hope, and how we choose to engage right now is gonna be a big part of that. So yeah, I'm sort of, there's a few things that I sort of have in the works, but I can't really like talk about just yet. But yeah, the short-term stuff is doing the big piece and doing the book. Yeah.
I didn't know about the book.
Yeah, I didn't tell you about it. Yeah. We just had too much good stuff. I was like, I can't do this justice with just a little thing. So we're going to do a beautiful book.
Can you button off for a minute, please? So,
No,
before
yeah.
I dive in.
Yeah. I loved Scott Base.
I
I thought
know,
it was
all
awesome.
of us,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so what was Scott Base like for you?
Oh my goodness, Scott Base is so cool. I had the best time at Scott Base, and I think it wouldn't have been the same not staying on the base going down to Antarctica, because you do get such a sense of, you know, it does feel like a research facility, like a science facility. You're down there. It's not a holiday. It's you know, you're on a facility, on a base, and there are real rules in place. There are codes in place, and you have to kind of fall in line with that. It's very charming. It's sort of like this big. I don't know. It feels like it's made of tin, even though I know it's not. You know, it feels like a sort of hut. It's all connected by this series of tunnels and rooms, and it sort of snakes off in different ways. But you can walk from one end of the base to the other without having to go outside, which is obviously amazing. Yeah, no, the base is awesome. So we stayed in a room which was like the fanciest room, which we were so grateful for. It had sort of 2 bunks and a little bathroom, which was incredible. And that is pitch black, because for us when we were there, it's bright daylight all the time. So, you know, you have to really tell your mind it's nighttime with the dark. But there's all these amazing kind of community spaces on the base, you know, thinking about where sort of the dining room where we would all go to eat all our meals, and that would be a real source of community, and everyone would come together and be looking at what the weather was doing, and, you know, sort of telling each other, like, pack this sort of glove or this jacket, it's going to be, it's going to get crazy tonight, you know. I really liked the community of that space, and like the Teddy Flag, the bar down there, which is so cool to be able to sit and drink a whiskey and look out at the ice shelf with all of the seals kind of lying around, and pinch yourself and just like, you know, oh my God, I'm in Antarctica. And it's yeah, there's something very Kiwi about the feeling of the base, you know. We went to the American base, which was amazing and very the facility was, you know, it's much bigger and there's sort of more going on, but there's something about the feel of the Kiwi base, and just the sort of like no frills nature of it makes you inherently focus on what you are there to do, you know, which is to put systems in place to support the science and to support whatever's going on environmentally. You never forget what your purpose is and what your place is in terms of the continent. It was interesting, the thing that I kept thinking about when I was there was that this place was not going to grant us mercy, which is a strange thing to be thinking about, but I've never been somewhere where I felt such reverence for the nature in its really pure form. There's something, it's like going to church or something. You just feel such reverence and such respect and gratitude for even like being allowed to be there. You know, I was very aware that at any moment a storm, you know, a condition 1 storm could blow through and ground us or leave people trapped somewhere in the field and have to, you know, wait it out. So you're never aware of nature in that form quite like being down there. And all you're thinking about at any time is the weather, the changes in the weather, how we're all going to be able to facilitate what people are doing down there. So yeah, it was it's sort of like, it's like spending the entire day on Twitter or Instagram, except Twitter and Instagram, your feed is like what's outside, you know. It's crazy.
Did it touch you creatively? Like, did you come back and put it all down? Like, how did it touch you creatively, I guess?
Oh man, well, Oh, I felt incredibly inspired by going to Antarctica. I actually decided on the album name right around that trip. Just coming back from that trip, I thought, this is what it is, which is not something that is even close to being announced, and that in itself is a weird announcement. But yeah, there is something so inspiring about it, just because I think you're having all these ideas, and then to go to somewhere which distills them into their purest form. There's nothing else to focus on. Everything feels so kind of elemental and dropped back to that purity. So yeah, it has been really inspiring for me creatively, and I think it always will. I think it's something that I think that experience is something that I'm going to be in conversation with creatively for a long time. The dreams, we never talked about the dreams you have when you come back from Antarctica. I have dreamt about Antarctica every week for 4 months, every few nights there's emperor penguins in my garden, or there's like some expanse of white, it gets you on a sort of subconscious level. I'm still just so grateful that I even got to go. It's just the coolest thing that will ever happen to me. I have a real memory of I was lucky enough to get to go out with some of the whale scientists. They were going out in helicopters and flying along the icebreaker channel, trying to track what those whales were doing, and they let me come out, for an hour, which was just incredible. Having the sort of doors pulled off this helicopter and kind of flying low and seeing these whales breach. But I had this moment where I was, it was sort of 10 o'clock at night and obviously still light, and I don't know, I think everyone was sort of getting dressed. I was just waiting, resting against this helicopter and looking out at the shelf and everything, and I had this very distinct moment of thinking, this is as cool as your life will ever get. This is it. Like, this is the rock and roll moment that you thought would be in New York or in LA or something. This is that moment. And it was incredible. I did get very cold that night though. That's as cool as I was. Yeah, I was like sitting there like having a meltdown. But yeah, it's I think I'm going to be thinking about it forever.
Yeah, that's cool.
These guys need to.
I think we're
hush their
we probably
bushes.
just about done. One more question I have, and this is just sort of a light one, but you get recognised wherever you go in the world,
yeah.
and people constantly come up and ask for selfies and things like that. What was it like being on the base at Scott Base, where probably everyone has their focus job and are pretty focused? What was it like visiting the staff?
Oh my gosh! Well, a big part of my life is interacting with people on the level of like, oh my God, I recognize you from this thing. Can I get a photo with you? And I sort of wasn't sure what to expect going down to Antarctica. But people were so cool about me being there. I had no idea what to expect. And we went into the kitchen that first night and sort of had a mug of tea, and straight away I was chatting to, Quentin, who was the chef for that season, and he was talking to me about the baking that they do. He's always doing Kiwi home baking, and instantly I was kind of like, okay, this is going to be cool, I think. And over the course of the week, I felt like I could walk into that dining room and people would be like, hey Ella, how was your day? What did you guys do? People were jealous that we got to do an amazing thing that day, but it was so cool. And there was some good, like, sort of gentle ribbing on me for being famous or whatever, but people were so awesome about, I don't know, about us being there, and I really was grateful for how chill everyone. there's no cool guys at Scott Base. It's like, you're all just, the cool guys are the guys that have been going for 40 years. You know, those are the guys that it's like, if you were going to ask anyone to get a selfie, like, it would be those guys, you know. So it was very nice and very kind of humbling being like super entry level and you know, just hoping someone would want to sit with me and talk to me. And there was always someone to hang with. It was, yeah, it was great. The vibe was really cool. And I loved that talk we did at the bar. We did a talk and people were asked me some questions about what life was like for me. And it was interesting to sort of reconsider my job and my life in the context of these people that are doing this work that I see as an incredible service, and thinking about how much respect I had for them and how to reorient what I do to incorporate some of that, you know, some of those skills or some of those services which are so, it's such giving, you know, doing that work, I really think. And I just felt, everyone that I spoke to, I felt like saying thank you on behalf of all of us that just live our lives and don't think about this every day. Thank you for doing this work. Yeah, so I felt very sort of humbled walking around the base, being around that sort of person. Yeah. It was so cool.
Thank you.